talk about your girl End-Tidal Co2. End-Tidal Co2 is the gold standard in a lot of things in the nursing world. For example, checking if someone is intubated properly, to show if someone is doing effective compressions, to detect if someone is having an early malignant hyperthermia crisis. There's a lot of fun stuff out there about End-Tidal Co2, and so I thought we could talk about this waveform as well as some different devices that we use to monitor End-Tidal Co2. Starting off with the waveform. So our normal CO2 is between 35 and 45. You can see here, 40 is kind of right where we see this patient's End-Tidal CO2. For the waveform, you have to think when you're exhaling, you're blowing out your CO2. And so that is when you're going to see the peak is at the end of expiration. So we start to take our breath out and expiration. And then when we begin to take a breath in or inspire, you should see this End-Tidal CO2 waveform come down. This is one device we use to measure End-Tidal CO2. This is just a nasal cannula. It can also be hooked up to oxygen, but it doesn't have to be hooked up to oxygen in order to measure End-Tidal CO2. And then this little orange device can hook to a little pump or your bedside monitor to show your waveform. Different device, same concept. This one usually hooks up to a ventilator. So you have an in-circuit End-Tidal CO2 that is directly connected to the patient's ventilator. There are a lot of reasons we monitor End-Tidal CO2. The main ones I would say are anyone that's receiving any sort of sedation medication to ensure that we are not over sedating them and not protecting their airway. So your procedural patients, your OR patients, anytime we are giving patients a lot of medications, for example, we will monitor End-Tidal CO2 in our CWA patients that we're giving a lot of benzos to in order to manage their withdrawal symptoms. In some ICUs, it's the standard to measure End-Tidal CO2 on all your intubated patients. And like I mentioned at the beginning, End-Tidal CO2 is very helpful during code blue situations as well. So that's a little bit more info on End-Tidal CO2. Let me know if you have any questions.